Hello and welcome to today's session. My name is Hilary and this is Swift Education. We are going to create a simple payroll in Microsoft Excel, and this is one of the beginning courses in Excel that makes you more skilled, more tech savvy, makes you understand the basics in Excel. So conventionally, when you move to the search button, you search Microsoft. You may just type Excel, and you click the app and open the app. When you open the app, the first interface you see is the cells and everything. You might want to click File and check on these other templates that you may use. For now, we are using a blank workbook, but you may have take a tour in Welcome to Excel, drop-down tutorials, formula tutorials, Power Query tutorials, and there are several other templates that you may wish to check. But our first step is just using a blank cell, and we're going to use a blank cell to study about creating a simple payroll in Microsoft Excel. Okay, let's begin. So we are going to name our payroll, and we are going to say it is let's use a fictitious company. Let's say True Stores employee payroll. Okay, then we are going to create a payroll having the employee names, and after the employee name we'll have the working hours per week. Let's say the week that ends 7th February. After 7 days, that will be 14th February, and we move on weekly hours calculated by the weekly wage or the hourly wage, and we're going to check if there is overtime and how much they are going to be paid for the period for their basic pay and also for the overtime pay. So let's start by the first name, then last name, then the duration they worked or the week they worked. The week ending 7th February 7, assume February 7, 2022. The next week will be, let's use a calculated field. We'll take the previous week, then we add 7 days to it, and it takes us to 14th February. What we have to do is go to 21st February, then 28th February, so that there are 4 weeks in February, and we're going to calculate how much they're going to be paid up to 28th February. So we may decide to copy and paste. Let's say copy and right click and paste. This one takes you to 21st February. The other option, you may click this cell and move to the tip of the corner where there is this square, and the cursor moved from this large positive sign to this black positive sign, and you drag. After dragging, it takes you to 20th February. Good. So let's say we are we want 20 employees that are employed by True Stores employee company or True Stores company. So let's write the names, 20 names. The first name is Gregory. The last name is Tom. The second employee is Alice Cates. And we go that way until the last name. So let me take time to write the names of the employees. Yes, we now have 20 employees, and we have now to find the number of hours they worked during the whole week. The number of hours they worked during the whole week. We're going to use a function called random because I'd like to generate random values that generate the number of hours worked between 35 hours to 45 hours per week. So I'm going to generate random numbers that are going to calculate the number of hours that was worked by these employees per week. I'm using random numbers because I could fill in with fictitious numbers, say 45 hours, 34 hours, uh, 32 hours, 43 hours. But filling all these values up to the last cell will take so much time. Therefore, I'd like to use random numbers and I'll copy and paste them here. Let me show you something else where I'm going to use random numbers and I'll paste them here. Let's say we use random number between rand and between the bottom is 35 and the top is 45, or let's say 46. Find it has generated a random number 2, 43, 37, 40, 41, 40, that way. You will notice that when I input another figure, let's say I input that 23, all these random numbers keep changing. Right now it is 45, 43, 42, 46, 23. But if I input a different value, let's say 41, all the random numbers will keep changing. I do not want these random numbers to change. So I'll create a different random numbers, say here, so that when I finish, I'll just copy and paste the values so that they don't keep changing. We have constant random numbers. So I'll say rand equals to run between. Once you type the function rand, you'll have Excel suggest to you the rand that you'd like to choose. I'd like to choose rand between. If you choose rand, it will choose random numbers between 0 and 1. Let's say, for example, I choose rand and I just close the brackets. Just close the brackets. Find it chooses random numbers between 0 and 1, and when you paste it here, you find it has random numbers between 0 and 1. But I'd like to choose random numbers between 35 to 46 hours. So I'll use the rand between. Bottom is 35, top is 46. 35, comma 46. Close the parentheses or the brackets and click enter. Then we have to paste it to the bottom, and we're going to create for 4 weeks, which are week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. So we're going to do this for 4 weeks, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we have our random numbers. Then we copy them, we highlight the section, and we'll paste as values. We paste as values. We paste as values 1, 2, 3. Do not paste as this because it will copy and paste with the formulas. But when you paste as values, it will not be changing. We check now, we have random numbers. But let's say if we pasted by copy, if we pasted by special, we'll find that it still has the formula and it will keep changing. Let's say if we feed any value here, the random numbers will keep changing. But if we basing on just pasting as values, the random numbers will not change. Therefore, we highlight these and we clear these cells, clear the contents of the cells. Good. We have the number of hours that our staff worked for during the entire week. Now we have to calculate the amount of pay, or we may calculate the total number of hours worked in the month. So we have to calculate total hours for February. Click enter. Then we have to use the function sum because we are calculating the sum of all these 4 values. So we use the value of sum, click this that has been suggested, we double click it. The number we are going to use this from cell C4 to cell F4. So we want all these values. You highlight them or you click on cell C4 and drag to the cell that you need calculated so that it chooses the array from cell C4 colon to F4. That means it has selected from the first to the last. You close the parenthesis, close the bracket, that is shift 0, and you click enter. We may want to copy this and paste on these all rows. You click copy, copy this, and you paste as a function. You paste as function, paste special. Click that, and you'll find that it will also now calculate. Let's double click. It has taken the sum from cell C5 to cell F5. And that is the advantage of copying using special. The first we copied using values, and these now we paste, we copy and paste as values so that the values do not change, but this we paste as a, let's copy, and we may paste, and we paste as special, paste as special. When we paste that way, we are going to paste the formulas. Then you find that it gives you the sum of all these values that collects the sum of C6 to F6. So that is the second option of pasting. The other option is moving to the tip of this bottom right tip where there is a fill square, and you click and drag to the bottom. It also pastes and calculates the values. So the total hours worked are indicated here. For our employees or for the employees of True Stores, they are supposed to work a minimum of 40 hours per week, or no, the standard is 40 hours per week. If the standard is 40 hours per week, then it means that if they worked less than 40 hours per week for the 4 weeks, it will be less than 160 hours, because it will be 160, it will be 40 times 4, which gives you 160 hours per month. So the employees are supposed to work 160 hours per month. So if an employee has less than 160 hours per month, it means he worked less hours. If an employee has more than 160 hours per month, it means they worked more, and the company can appreciate them by giving them an overtime for working a higher number of hours. So let's calculate the overtime hours of the employees, overtime hours. What we have to do is calculate the total number of hours subtracted from 160, which is the normal working hours per month. What we get is a negative value, and a negative can never be an overtime. You cannot have negative overtime of 6 hours. So we can use, or we will use the if function. If the number of hours is greater than 160, then we calculate the overtime hours. If we have worked for only 160 hours, it means we will not have overtime hours. And if we have worked for less than 160 hours, it means that we will not have overtime hours, and it shall just give us a value of 0. So we will use the if function and type if. We use the first if if function. Each of these, if, let's say, let me indicate if error, if not applicable, if else, has its own function which we will discuss later. But let's use the if function. So the logical test is what we are going to use, what we are going to do. So if the total hours worked for the whole month is greater than 160. That is our test. If this is greater than 160, comma, so what if it is greater than 160? What the next is value if true. If this value is greater than 160, so if it's greater, what do? We will take this value again minus 160. What if it is false? Because after doing that, we put a comma, then we go to the last bit of the if function. What if it is false? If it is false, then we have to say, or we have to use, we just input 0. So if the value is greater than 160, we have to input 0. Or no, if the value is not more than 160, that means it's 160 and below. We have to put 0 in that cell. So we close and we click enter. Then we apply this to all the 20 cells or all the 20 employees. We find that whenever an employee worked less than 160 hours, the overtime is 0. And if the employee worked for 160 hours, the overtime is 0. However, employees that worked more than 160 hours, we find the time that they worked more than the 160 hours. So we have the total hours worked, the overtime hours worked. Now we have to calculate the basic salary or wages. Basic salary, and we have to use first the wage per hour. Basic salary per hour. Assuming we pay our employees $25 per hour, you type 25 in the cell, and this is a currency. Therefore, we select currency, and you may want not just to use the dollar sign, because in whatever country you live in, it may not be USA. So you click on this bottom, you come to this number and click this, and move to the accounting. Yes, then you click to the currency in the country that you come from. For example, if you come from India, you have Indian rupee. If you come from Canada, you have Canadian dollars. If you come, let's say, from Kenya, we have the Kenyan shilling. So it depends whatever country you come from. If you are from US, you type US dollars. Then you click OK. So the basic wage is $25 per hour. Then we copy it to the bottom. Or sometimes, instead of dragging to the bottom, maybe you have more than 1,000 rows. So you just double click, move this to the tip of this corner, double click, then it computes. So each of these employees is paid $25 per hour. So we calculate now the total salary to be paid for February. This is a calculated field. We'll type in the function that calculates the total wages, equal sign 154 times the basic salary. Then you click enter. Then you find that Gregory Tom is supposed to be paid $3,850 for the month of February. So we double click again, and it calculates the amount of salary that is supposed to be paid to each employee. We may also want to award them for the overtime they worked. So we type overtime pay. The overtime pay will be the overtime hours calculated by the basic salary. Then we have to give a discount to them. Let's say we do not have to pay them the same rate as the basic salary. Some companies pay them higher than the basic salary, while some companies pay them lower. In this case, since we have calculated the number of hours have been computed in the total salary, what we have to do is, let's say the company pays 25% more for each overtime hour worked. Therefore, we'll calculate this by adding 0.25, and that gives us 0 because Gregory did not work overtime. However, let's check for the other stuff. And this hash 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 means that this value is large and it does not fit in this cell. So we come at the margin of the cell and double click. We come at the margin until it forms this sign and double click so that it gives us enough space to show all the values. So you find that for 1 hour worked, this employee Alice Kate earns $6.5 for the overtime hour worked. So what Howard receives almost the highest because he worked 14 overtime hours. So we have now calculate now the total pay, taking the total salary adding to the overtime pay. So total, let's rename this subtotal salary, and this as the total salary. Click enter. So the total salary will be the subtotal salary added to the overtime pay. So you click the equal sign so that you insert a function equals to this plus the overtime pay. It has the name error because this is 0. So this has, as a calculated field, will insert the field function so that we'll insert the if function so that if the value is 0 or a dash, we just put it 0. Okay, then it is an error, J4 plus uh, this. Okay, yes, it has calculated the value. Now move to the tip and double click, and we find that an employee such as Howard received a basic salary of $4,350, an overtime pay of $87, and the total salary of $4,437.50. Therefore, this is how to create a simple payroll and calculating the values. So for the number of hours worked, we may want to highlight in yellow, or let's select colors. Total hours worked, let's give it a color, let's say like green. And the overtime pay, let's give it that color. So you find that this is how you can you can create a simple payroll in Excel with calculated fields using random values, and we can calculate these other things. Therefore, we can convert this to a table and insert. We move to the top menu and click insert, and let's make it a table. And when you make it to be a table, make sure you click my table has header so that the first row will be the header. Let's have this to have a uniform color, or yeah, let's make it normal. Okay, we have everything computed. Yeah, and that's how you make a simple payroll. And you may want to print this and click print. You come to file and click print, and you'll find that this can be printed into many pages, and this is only page 1 of 3. So you find this is page 2 and it goes until page 3. And we may want to make sure that this only fits in one page. What we have to do is change the orientation so that it becomes landscape. And when you change the orientation to landscape, you find that it takes now only 2 pages. So what we have to do next is to make sure that it fits. Here we have no scaling, but we have to fit sheets on one page. And now we have all the columns on one page and we can print this. Let me move back and check something here. And let me delete this. Okay, let's go back and click print. And you find that we have to fit this to one page so that it fits into one page, as I have explained. And yeah, it's on landscape orientation. So this can be printed on one sheet so that it becomes a record for the farm for the month of February. So this can be done for February, January, February, March, and so on. So this one can be renamed to February 2022 payroll. If we have a different payroll, say March, and so on until the end of the year. Note that this is just a simple example of a payroll system. However, you may be an investor and you have a farm such that one pays, we have the tenant name, and we have the basic rent, we have the water bill, we have electricity bill, we have all these other charges that they have to pay. Therefore, you may compute all this and present it on the table so that it is easy for the landlord to know the cost that he incurs monthly for each of the tenants and create good records that can be kept either for future referencing, for the taxation purposes, or all these can be stored so that it makes the farm more transparent and more accountable. For more of this, please like, share, subscribe, and always watch so that we can grow together when we are learning most about Excel programming and how Excel can be used in daily lives if someone does not have the money or the funds to buy dedicated software for this. So let's learn basic Excel, how it can be useful in everyday life. Thank you. Subscribe, like, share, and let's engage together.